Alright, so look, quote-unquote woke games, as certain people will call them, don't actually exist. In fact, the people who use that kind of terminology in this day and age tend to be some of the worst people imaginable. Pronouns! Much like a lot of slang that's been co-opted by groups of people that have no idea how to use it and thus create new bastardized meanings, the term woke was coined by Black Americans. Dating as far back as the 1930s, the term was first used by American folk and blues singer Leadbelly when he was interviewed about a song he wrote called the Scottsboro Boys.
I made this little song about down there, so I advise everybody to be a little careful when they go along through that, but stay woke, keep their eyes open.
The song was based on a story about 9 black teens falsely accused of rape by an all-white jury. The song was intended to inform black people of the injustices around them and to keep an eye out. Woke was cultural shorthand, a reminder within black communities to stay awake to systemic racism, oppression, and injustice. It wasn't a weapon, and it was most certainly not some kind of dog whistle. It was something most white Americans can't even begin to fathom. It was survival, and that's what people don't get. Much like how cancel culture or political correctness were twisted beyond recognition, woke was solely hijacked and rebranded by people who neither understood its roots nor cared to. Emphasis must be placed on nor cared to. That's how we got to the point where people who have never had to stay awake a day in their lives think they're experts on the word. I say that because for anyone here who came to this video with intolerance already in their heart, I have a question. Can you even remember why and how woke got put into the mainstream? Well, see, this rebrand didn't happen overnight. It took a perfect storm. Social media, outrage culture, and white American discomfort colliding all at once. Woke, as white America knows it, became part of the cultural zeitgeist around 2014. If we dig a bit deeper, we can see that 2014 was the same year Michael Brown and Tamir Rice were killed by Timothy Lehman and Darren Wilson.
The reaction to the decision not to charge Officer Darren Wilson was almost immediate violence by some in the crowd that assembled outside the Ferguson Police Department.
Cleveland officials are appealing for calm today after a grand jury decided not to indict 2 police officers in the killing of a 12-year-old boy in a playground.
Protesters marched in Cleveland on Monday night, hours after county prosecutors announced the grand jury's decision.
Those moments didn't just spark protests, they woke people up. It was a warning to stay aware of police brutality, media bias, and a justice system that had never been for black people. It trended because black activists were warning each other that ignorance could cost lives. These were the original social conditions in which white America first noticed the word, and once they noticed it, they paved the way for certain people years later to do what they always do. They mocked it.
It's kind of annoying that we have to put up with feminism and wokeness. You can't just get a normal game. That sounds like I'm saying the same thing over and over, but it really is the truth. Screw these miserable people.
They diluted it.
Woke is the forced, inorganic inclusion of certain token minorities and groups in order to score DEI and ESG points.
And then they weaponized it.
Yeah,
that's what DEI does. It promotes prejudice. They want people to look at someone of different race and have prejudices of that person.
I think that if Elon Musk did Nazi salutes every single day, they still wouldn't radicalize as many people as stuff like this does.
Are you dumb?
See, this is the pipeline. Mock the struggle, redefine it, and then sell fear about it. That's how we went from stay awake to you're ruining video games. Understand this. Woke was never the enemy. The only people threatened by awareness are the ones who benefit from everyone else staying asleep. And that brings us to video games. A new battlefield for the same intolerant fear. The fear of a black woman featured prominently.
This is the best you got. This is the best you can do. Neil Druckmann's tried to make characters as unattractive as possible.
You know who this motherfucker look like, low-key? Lord!
The fear of a black man given the status of samurai and having hundreds of gamers cry about historical accuracy in a franchise that had you fighting the Pope.
Yasuke wasn't a samurai. He was a retainer who allegedly used a katana once or twice. Others are claiming that Yasuke was never a samurai, but a documented retainer. So who is Yasuke? And was he a samurai? For those who don't know, Yasuke was a real historical figure and a samurai. In English, retainer is what Yasuke is often translated to be depicted as. However, in Japanese history, this is what is written.
とりあえず辞書引いとく。安家の位に関する記述って残っていなくって、胡椒あるいは武士のどちらかだと思われてるんですよね。どっちも侍でー。
The fear of a woman with peach fuzz?
You know, sometimes I worry I'm being too sensitive about things, and then I remember that at least I'm not the person who got upset about Aloy from the Horizon games having completely normal body hair like every single mammal does. It's completely normal for mammals to be covered in hair, with the exception of like a few places. Like on humans, we don't have it on the palms of our hands. On things like whales and elephants, it's a little bit more sparse. But the point is, all mammals have hair covering our bodies. It's completely normal. This isn't a beard. This isn't part of some agenda. This is just a normal animal thing to have. Like this person, tell me you've never actually been next to a human being without telling me you've never actually been next to a human being. I find it quite funny.
And the fear of the existence of pronouns in a game where customization is literally a feature from a company that has let you customize your character since the first game. And you know, before we move on to the next section, I just have to say, none of this is really about video games. It's about control for these people. When people say they're forcing diversity or this is woke, what they actually mean is, I'm not used to sharing space. Keep my politics and worldviews unchallenged. And or, please don't make me think about the world outside my own comfort zone. Their outrage is a symptom of privilege being mistaken for normalcy. See, when you've been censored all of your life, equality feels like oppression. And a symptom of oppression is fear. See, these fears might feel new, but they're really not. Not really. And with that being said, we have to realize something. Gaming has always been woke. So most of my subscribers are men aged from 18 to 34, meaning like some Gen Z and some millennials. Personally, I was born in 98, and some people would deem me as a zillennial. Whether or not you give weight to that phrase, at best, I grew up with some of the same games and franchises as some of my older subscribers. And at worst, I have at least passing knowledge of some of the ones that are a bit too old for me. With that being said, it literally took a couple of Google searches to see how video games always held some sort of mirror up to society. How it was always a medium that reflected and or critiqued the world at large. Now I won't posture and pretend like as a snot-nosed greasy kid I knew about
the political and economic state of the world right now.
I want to break this section up into mini sections using some points from a certain woke gaming list that we'll touch on later. But for now, I'll say this. There's this list that some of the worst people imaginable made that lists games and tells them which game is woke and why they consider it woke. Now at first glance, it was the usual examples they give, but trust me, this list gets pretty fucking egregious. But for now, we'll focus on some points that are more commonly touched on. First off, we have the presence of minority leads, aka and look, this encompasses more than the presence of black people in video games. Hell, but you and I would both be idiots to ignore how rageful some white gamers become when black people dare to just exist. Can anyone say Yasuke? Anyway, let's go back to 2004. Rockstar releases one of the best Grand Theft Auto games. Hell, maybe even one of the best games of that era. That being Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
Oh shit, here we go again.
So from this list, we touch on minority leads. So I'm not going to dive deep into this whole game, but I'm going to dive into the opening scene of this game. That of which I'm sure you've all seen at least once, assuming you even had a passing interest in Grand Theft Auto. After a call from his brother saying that their mom is dead, our main guy, Carl Johnson, is seen heading back to his old stomping grounds after being in Liberty City for 5 years. Almost immediately arriving, he, a black man, is harassed by the police. Met with guns and the theft of his quote-unquote drug money, he's framed for murder, blackmailed, and coerced into cooperating. Now a bit of framing is needed here.
It was like the first time we had actually seen it, so it was shocking, but at the same time it was wonderful, because now we Americans, we African Americans, we had evidence of our claims of, injustice and mistreatment.
This game takes place in '92, a year after the beating of Rodney King and the subsequent riots that also took place in Los Angeles, specifically the South Central area, the very place San Andreas takes place. Now, what did we just see? Corrupt cops using unnecessary force, illegal tactics like blackmail, planting and framing all against the black guy. Now, regardless of the crime CJ committed before, I don't see a real reason as to how they had due cause for stopping him. The game shows in its intro the tip of the iceberg that is not only the racial tensions, but the systemic issues in our police system. Notice how the lead cop in this group is a black man, and his two partners are a white man and a Hispanic man. This is essentially saying that the police status essentially can transcend race, or rather this system of oppression, while rare, can transcend race and be used against the very groups they are a part of. This is genuinely such a layered intro, and it's kind of funny actually. I'm sure if a similar case happened in real life, the same people who play games like this would immediately say that CJ was wrong instead of just cooperated, that these cops were just doing their jobs. Regardless, Regardless, within the first 10 minutes, this game reflects the real world. However, it's lost on some people. You know, the same ones who laud this game as amazing, but also have a weird fascination with people like George Floyd and mocking his death. But let us say something about Charlie Kirk, and I'm wrong, right?
You serious?
Anyway, we fast forward a couple gears until we get to one of the best written characters in gaming, that being Lee Everett from Telltale's The Walking Dead. Now, there isn't much to say about him and how he reflects the real world per se, but Lee is a character that just happens to be black. You see, he's a minority without having any deeper implication. Lee can just exist, and that's something that these fucking people can't seem to grasp. If we expand into the movie territory for a bit, and into the weirdo fan base that is Star Wars, the fan reaction to one Rose Tico absolutely disgusted me. The character Rose Tico was introduced in The Last Jedi, and listen, I remember people online being so upset that she was Asian? Now, speaking as someone who is partially Korean, this made me feel a fucking way. What the f does her race have anything to do with her existing in a universe where space Jesus is born from fucking midichlorians? See, Lee represents representation without expectation. He doesn't have to be a method of conveying systemic and institutional racism. He doesn't have to be a shining example of black excellence. In fact, he literally could be a candidate for getting invited to Silent Hill. From a professor, to a murderer, to world's best dad, Lee could have easily been a white man. And like only 3 scenes would really change. Lee is a multi-dimensional character who, if anything, tells a tale of an adopted family. And I might get shit for it, but I think Lee Everett is a better father figure than Joel Miller. But anyway, for this section, we touch on a character near and dear to many black and Latino kids around the world. One who not only inspires hope like their original iteration, but acts as a physical manifestation of representation, that being Miles Morales. Now, I genuinely cannot remember the first time I even got introduced to Miles Morales, but being the lifelong Spider-Man fan that I am, being able to see a Spider-Man who even vaguely looked like me was so f***ing cool. And listen, again, I'm a lifelong Spidey fan. I saw the first Raimi movie in theaters and I was like 4 years old. With that being said, I didn't see myself as Spider-Man because he was white under the mask. See, it didn't even matter really. I saw a cool superhero with a cool mode of transportation, with cool powers, and I loved him. I related to him, not because of his race, but because he was simply cool. The nuance of why didn't happen until much later. But when I found out about Miles, I saw the kid in the mirror who wore those Spider-Man pajamas. I saw myself. And I think for some white people, Miles comes off like a threat to Peter, and he just isn't. He's not a besmirchment of the Spider-Man name, rather an extension. The same way little white kids saw themselves in the mirror from the jump, Miles gives that same joy to millions of black and Latino kids. See, it's not about taking something original and making it fit someone's worldview. It's about being able to see you represented, to see your favorite hero reflected back at you. Now yes, I do think it's a bit weird to make certain characters black for no reason, but notice I said certain. Characters like Nick Fury or Domino have their race as a negligible aspect of their being. That being said, a black Kal-El or a black Bruce Wayne would indeed feel forced, but a black Superman or a black Batman could indeed work and would provide millions of black fans with representation. Now you might be saying, make your own characters, and original black superheroes exist too, but you also shit on them too, so shut the fuck up. You see, Miles exists in a weird space. He's a legacy character, one that gets a lot of flack. But it's funny, you know how many Robins there are, Green Lanterns, the Flashes? Nobody ever gives them flack for wearing those mantles. Is it perhaps that Miles is interesting? In fact, the people who hate Miles simply because he's black are also part of a legacy mantle, that mantle being a bitch. Now you may say, June, Miles isn't a well-written character, and that be the case in some instances, but one, Peter has some shitty storylines too, as does any superhero. You have to give them time to find the best way to write the character. And two, a good amount of times when people say I just want good writing or anything to that effect, it's really just a dog whistle. It gives that person plausible deniability to say racist shit without getting flack, but we'll touch more on that later. See, Miles for me almost acts like a litmus test on empathy. Sure, you cannot like his character, but I still have yet to receive a well thought out reason as to why. Regardless, Miles represents the shift in gaming culture's reaction to black leads. We went from CJ being lauded as one of the most iconic characters and reflecting the racial tension of the 90s to Spider-Man quote unquote fans saying Peter is Spider-Man and Miles Morales is Miles Morales. Again, another dog whistle. But now, let's talk about some gay shit. So I'm almost certain my first real introduction to pro-LGBTQ themes in gaming was the same game that most people would cite, and that would be the Sims franchise. Now, I first got my introduction to The Sims with Sims 2 on the PS2, but even back in the first game, it was indeed possible to be a member of the Rainbow Gang. Literally, I can't find any backlash about people disliking the LGBTQ aspects of this game, and honestly, I'm willing to bet that a good amount of right-wing homophobes played some version of The Sims growing up and probably kissed a dude as a guy themselves just to, you know, see if they could, right? See, this was such a non-issue, and this was just seen as a normal and keyword optional part of the game. Flirting, kissing, woohooing and some of the same sex was integrated flawlessly, and it just worked. And you know, there's not much to say about it here. It was in the game and whoop-de-doo. But you may be saying, but June, real gamers don't play The Sims. That's a female game, right? And I'd tell you to shut the fuck up because that doesn't make any fucking sense. But I'd also bring up another game loaded by about 95% of gamers. That being Rockstar's Bully. Now, Bully is a game near and dear to many people's hearts for a myriad of reasons. To the music, to the atmosphere of the school, to the memorable characters, Bully is considered a cult classic to many gamers. But there's a core mechanic in the game that lets you, as Jimmy, the main character, kiss other boys. And you know what? Good for bro. But no, this was again such a non-issue, and I'm willing to bet two things. One, gamers didn't even know this mechanic was in the game because it was optional and not required. And two, nobody back then really gave a fuck. So why is it that now these f***s get up in arms about it? Because I'm willing to bet that if Bully 2 did see the light of day, and that has happened to highlight the fact that Jimmy was in fact bisexual or bisexual coded, the yellow teeth goon cave having hydrophobic as troglodytes would say, oh no, they made it woke, as if Jimmy wasn't already widely considered to be bisexual. I think the dissonance happens because Jimmy doesn't wear sexuality on his sleeve. And just to shut this argument down, because I know it's coming, wearing your sexuality on your sleeve isn't a bad thing. Finding joy and identity in an aspect of yourself that gets demonized is a braver act than any homophobe could ever muster up. But anyway, Jimmy is a bisexual icon and no amount of coping can erase that. Plus, I'm sure Jimmy would just beat your ass if you said something negative about it anyway. My point being, nobody gave a f. But now we move over to a game that took over my life in freshman year and made my grades plummet, and that being Mass Effect. This one is a bit similar in how they portray LGBTQ relations in that, like The Sims, it's sort of this is optional implementation. Literally, if you weren't gay or a lesbian or whatever, you would probably never find out about the gayness of this game, which makes me wonder, apart from the internet, how exactly do these guys know that's even in the game? My point being, I don't think anyone gave a f that you could f Caden on the Normandy and make Joker's job as a pilot even harder. But no, with all that being said, I want to point to the Asari as well. See, the Asari are a race that presents like a female human. They're monogendered, and some of their speech patterns reflect that.
My species is monogendered. Male and female have no real meaning for us. We still require a partner to reproduce. This second parent, however, may be of any species and any gender.
The Asari represent a weird dissonance between some gamers. See, for all intents and purposes, the Asari are pretty sexy. They are in fact sexualized in a very cisgendered heterosexual way.
Young males have an unhealthy obsession with my species.
And I think that alone protected any potential backlash they might have gotten back then. So I think if this game came out now, like not just the remastered packs, but if Mass Effect as a whole came out now in the present day, one of two things would happen. The anti-woke crowd would either love the Asari and say cringe like, ha, take that libtards, games are sexy again, or they call it woke for making them all women and say things like go woke, go broke, or they're trying to push an agenda here, and the most heinous of them would make these mods to make every one of them male for some reason. Much like how they modded Will from Baldur's Gate to be white, and that's a whole other issue I don't even want to touch upon because that's weird. People acted as if his race had anything to do with his character as a whole, which is just insane. But side note, right, you can have a 6-foot-tall dragon man in your game but not a black person. That to me is the most fragile shit I've ever heard of. Sure, the left can be a bunch of babies sometimes, but we're crying over human rights and representation and inclusion in our favorite pieces of media. You're crying about an optional same-sex scene in games.
Shut the f up, shut up.
But no, the Asari are actually a pretty good segue into the next section. The Asari, while probably not meaning to be, can be read as trans-inclusive, or even as a metaphor for gender fluidity. And while not a perfect one-to-one comparison, it still seeks to challenge our view of how one can present themselves to the world. One of the earliest instances of a trans woman being in video games, to my knowledge, would have to have been Poison from the Street Fighter franchise. Now, Poison is an interesting character, and that although she is canonically trans, the origins of her being trans is a bit problematic. The original idea of Poison was to make female enemies for the Final Fight series, but the staff became worried mid-production that because the game is built around beating up enemies, that feminist groups would sue the company for the game encouraging the player to beat up women. So, as a weird safety measure, they explicitly stated that Poison was transgender in the game's manual, as a way to sidestep that issue. Now, like I said, yikes, but now, according to the devs, her gender is left up to interpretation, so I guess you could say she is a biological woman. However, in the modern day, Poison is mostly recognized by fans as a transgender woman. Now, this was back in the 1980s, so the political climate regarding trans people was pretty abhorrent, and the reason they made her trans is obviously disgusting, but in the modern day, Poison is a relic of a time that didn't understand people like her, but again, now, she's mostly seen as a transgender woman. Now, I'm not trans myself, so I don't want to become some authority on trans people or be some kind of spokesperson for how the community feels about Poison as a whole, especially given her origins, so please feel free to comment on your feelings about her and how you view her if you are part of that community. But hey, for all the people here in bad faith, look at Poison really quick.
Can't start the show without the star.
I'm gonna come.
You telling me you're not cracking that? Insane. Anyway, I want to talk about a series that's still pretty close to my heart, that being the Saints Row series. So I know people mostly played Saints Row 2 for their first introduction into this series, and it's actually a pretty decent starting off point, so I can't talk shit about that. But anyway, this is more of a technical point more than anything, and one that I think is more of a headcanon example, but still, I think it holds up. See, if this game came out today, the anti-woke mob would be fucking livid. You see, in Saints Row 1, you're locked into being a man. There's no option to be a woman at the start of this game. But we fast forward to Saints Row 2, and you're suddenly given the option to become a woman. Now look, this could be chopped up to being use of better hardware and tech, but still, you are canonically the same male character as you were in the first game. And any game after 2 still lets you have that option. Nobody, and I mean nobody, gave a damn about this feature, either out of ignorance for the first game, or because we're all too busy smacking people with purple dildos in the second game. Like I said, if this game came out today, oh f***ing boy. In reality, the gender/sex change option was such a non-issue. It was, again, optional. These people really hate inclusion. But anyway, I want to speak about a game that I've loved last year because there's genuinely nothing like it at the moment. That game being Baldur's Gate 3. There isn't much to talk about here, but on that list, they said that Baldur's Gate 3, because of the option of body type instead of gender, like male or female, it's woke. Now listen, Baldur's Gate 3 is one of the best games I've ever played, and I dare say that even if you can't get a D&D session going in real life, this game is the next best thing. Now, as we all know, Baldur's Gate 3 is based on the world of D&D, where you have elves and tieflings and dwarves and gnomes and etc. etc. D&D is literally the ultimate power fantasy. The name of the game here is customization and imagination. So why is it so off-putting to people that some people wouldn't go by male or female pronouns? And even then, nobody's stopping you from using your preferred body type and pronouns.
What's your name, age, and pronouns?
I'm a man, and my name is Kona. That is not no pronouns. Screw your pronouns.
So you don't use pronouns at all?
My pronouns is the man that doesn't respect you.
Okay, so do you use pronouns, yes or no?
Hell no.
Okay, so this is what I want you to do. For the rest of this stream, I will accept that you don't use pronouns, okay? I got it, 100%. If you use a pronoun, okay? If you use a pronoun, you will hear this sound. And what topic did you want to debate about?
You know what? Let's go with, let's go with
Careful there. You said the word you. You is a pronoun. So just remember you don't use pronouns.
You
okay?
is not a pronoun, bro.
Sorry, you just used the word you again.
Is
you
not
is
a pronoun.
Used it again.
Is not a pronoun.
Kona, can you see the stream?
No.
Great. So I'll just do this for everybody who's
Please
watching
tell
on
me how is
YouTube.
you a pronoun?
I'll just do
Please
this for
tell me
everybody
how is
watching
you
on
a pronoun?
YouTube. Now, there are a couple types of pronouns. There are subject pronouns, object pronouns, possessive adjectives, possessive pronouns, and reflexive pronouns. You would be a subject
people that
pronoun.
think they can become a bucket. I wanted to become Superman when I was younger, but I grew out of that.
You would be a subject pronoun, Kona. I don't know if you know this, but if you don't, it's okay.
Dude, your pronouns don't exist.
Ooh, careful.
You're a man or
careful,
a woman.
Careful.
You're a man or a woman.
Ooh, that's another one. Careful.
That's it.
Careful. Careful.
You're
that's
a
another
man
pronoun.
or a woman.
Oh,
No,
there you go. Careful again. Oh, you is another pronoun, Kona. Be careful. You is another pronoun.
Not only do you feel decentered and like the spotlight was taken off of you, you want others to not feel included. The thing is, you're still included, you're just not the focus anymore. And ultimately, that's a good thing. White, straight, cis defaultism makes no real sense when a good amount of people who play video games simply aren't that. At some point, it's not woke to include these options. It's simply a good business move. That's why when you say shit like, go woke, go broke, it just comes off as a dog whistle to signify how much of a shit person you truly are. If you were so concerned about your favorite IP going broke, you'd see how inclusion is ultimately a good thing for sales. Something isn't bad simply because your identity isn't the main one reflected. If you missed out on a good game like Baldur's Gate 3 simply because it includes the options of body types and pronouns, I genuinely feel sorry for you. Again, there isn't much to say about it, it's just a silly reason not to play a video game. But with all that being said, I want to ask a serious question to the people who unironically use the word woke, especially when it comes to inclusion of women in media, and in this case, video games. How can you be attracted to women in real life, but hate the idea that a woman takes an important and or essential role in any given piece of media? For a group of mostly men who value traditional American ideologies, that of which focus on heterosexuality, getting pissed at the presence of women and them having central roles seems sort of gay. And it's funny because I know all of you goon to big titty goth girls, but you're not consuming the sot people like Asmongold spew, but let that same woman be a main character in a video game. You get mad publicly, then buy the game on Steam and download the first nude mods you see. And this is a whole other side rant, but why is it these people need every woman in a game to be conventionally attractive? See, literally, when the Fable 4 trailer dropped, people got so up in arms about this character, and it's like, who cares?
Like, I don't understand, I'll tell you this, right? I really don't understand the logic and like, why would you make it a super ugly character? Like, why would you put a really ugly character in the trailer? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, nobody wants to look at an ugly person. Like, it doesn't make any, like, what are we doing? Like, nothing says female inclusion like making them ugly. It's just so ridiculous. What a world we live in.
You're focusing on the wrong shit here. Literally, we're getting a new Fable game, but because a character in the trailer doesn't get your induced erectile dysfunction dick to move a couple centimeters, it's woke? Please go touch grass. Please. But anyway, I want to make a point about you not really, at your core, caring about women in video games. Remember when you first learned that Samus was a woman? Did you care then? Probably not. And if you didn't back then, I know you just grew up and fell down the worst kinds of pipelines and retroactively labeled characters like Samus woke. Again, I'm sure if a game like Metroid came out now, with no amount of sexiness akin to a game like Stellar Blade, people would call it woke as f. A bit of a hypothetical for you actually. Imagine a Metroid game came out today and we had no indication that Samus was a woman. Her armor had no curves, her voice was distorted, and she moved like a man. It would be praised by these woke types until we got to the ending and she removed her helmet and we found out that Samus was a woman. These people would struggle with such a dissonance that would implode the YouTube scene. Videos with titles like, so is Metroid woke? Or Metroid tricked me into liking wokeness? Or why is Metroid afraid of being sexy? Or shit like that, you know? Listen, my first encounter with Samus was in Super Smash Bros. Melee. I literally had no clue Samus was a woman because of the reasons mentioned earlier. She wore armor that didn't accentuate her body, she had no voice, and there was just no indication that she was a woman. And guess what? When I did find out that she was a woman, I thought, huh, that's cool. Even when I was a kid, I didn't care. Again, if this game came out today, right-wing incel red pill pandemonium. But anyway, let's talk about a modern game that has a lot of people in a tizzy for some reason. That being Ghost of Yotei. I'm going to piss a lot of people off, I know it if I haven't already, and you know what? Good. The first game in this series, Tsushima, I don't know how to say it, is an amazing game. Its combat is layered without feeling overly complicated, the game's story is interesting, and it looks amazing. What's not to like, right? Well, I'll say it, Jin Sakai is the most boring protagonist I've ever had the displeasure of playing as. He's boring as even when he goes against his code of being a samurai, he's still so without edge, it just feels like I'm playing a stock character. So when a sequel got announced, I was excited and hopeful that they introduced some kind of great new protagonist, one who had even a modicum of personality. Obviously, we now know that Yotei features a woman as a protagonist. Her name is Atsu, and she's out for revenge against a group of killers who killed her parents as a child. And so many gamers, so many YouTubers were so pissed that we couldn't play as Jin Sakai again, and I'm left confused because who the f actually liked Jin as a character? Are you upset because he isn't playable? Or are you mad because the MC is now a woman now? There's, to me, no real reason why this would piss you off. People say that she isn't a samurai and that it makes the game feel unrealistic. My brother in Christ, you're telling me one man can take down 40 people trained in combat? Exactly, shut the fuck up. This game was never really about samurai in my opinion. It was about telling a story that featured a samurai once. The Ghost of franchise is more than samurai. It's about revenge. It's about honor.
We stay hungry, we devour.
But because these people can't project white man Gary Sue onto Atsu, it's woke. These are the same people mad that Mary Jane can solo train guards in Insomniac Spider-Man. They clearly say that she got trained for combat in the game, but because she's a woman, it's unrealistic. These people claim that Atsu shouldn't be able to solo groups of men, but like, it's a video game. It never claimed to be realistic. What are you actually talking about here? But you know what's funnier? 25. No, not that. What's funny is that these people still bought the game. I will never understand gamers hating a game, but still buying it at full price, mind you. These people get so mad when I tell them that they don't have to play a game that they know they'll hate. But call it FOMO or just being bad with money. Point being, they still actively support a game they claim to hate. I don't understand it, man. And like, this being a new game, I'm already seeing people nitpick this game and call Atsu a Mary Sue. For example, this video where Atsu does the bamboo challenge and you're met with an extra piece of the minigame. And of course, people in the comments are already saying how much better they made her over Jin. And these people are exhausting. And listen, I'm willing to bet they added that just to be cool. Like the devs are probably thinking like, oh, you guys played the first game and you think you know what to expect, but we threw in something you didn't expect, you know? And these only saw it as a comparison. You know what that sounds like to me? It sounds like you're a miserable person who suffers from comparing yourself to people you deem better, when in actuality, you and those people are just different. This all speaks to a bigger issue here though. This hate, this intolerance just speaks to how lame, boring, and truly insecure these people really are.
Yo, what happened to the nerd community, bro? When did we become conservative? What happened?
Nerds didn't become conservative. Lonely people did. Let me tell you a story. When I was younger, I attempted to disqualify myself from the game of life because I felt profoundly lonely. But there was one group that became like my family. A group of strangers on Xbox Live that played video games with me. And you know what they told me about my problems? That if a girl thought I was unattractive or someone didn't want to be my friend, the problem wasn't me, it was them. That people were just intimidated by my intellectual superiority. My parents saw the shifts in my personality and put me in therapy. But for the millions of kids who feel lonely today, there's a whole industry that wants them to feel that way. They don't want you to feel better. They want you to subscribe to their channel and their newsletter. They seek out people experiencing emotional hardship so that they can offer a solution in the form of a parasocial relationship. A whole generation had revenue models built on their insecurities that told them to hate minorities instead of getting therapy.
We all see art through the lens of our lived experiences. And I'm not exactly sure what happened to these people to make them think and act like this, but I implore these people to get therapy, get some kind of help, get a journal or something. Or at least reflect on why you're so vitriolic. My point being, games always had these themes. They've always told alternative stories, ones that didn't always reflect boring, straight white men. And I'm not saying that that's always going to be a bad thing. I want you to have your representation too. But the thing is, you've grown up with it. You've had your time. It's time to get off the proverbial swing set and give someone else a go. Am I telling you to get off the playground? No, I'm telling you to wait in line for once. You will get your turn. The censoring you doesn't mean your exclusion. So why is it that my inclusion feels like oppression to you? Despite games always being quote-unquote woke, it's safe to say that the marketing and cultural spotlight still belong to the same guy. Mid-20s to 30s, white, buzz cut, tragic backstory, elite combat training, the so-called everyman. Again, can someone say Gary Sue? I look again at people like Max Payne, Sam Fisher, Joel Miller, etc, and I think the true issue that the people who use woke unironically have is that they suffer from something that I like to call white defaultism. And it's exactly what it sounds like. When you picture a guy in any piece of media, you probably picture someone like this, or this, or this.
You know who this motherfucker look like, low-key? Lord!
But with that being said, we need to move on to the next section of the video. That being the importance of representation and the fragility of people who can't stand it.
I didn't know you smoked.
I don't. It's illegal to smoke in the airports. I just want to show you how bad it's gotten. Watch this. See? Nobody even says anything to me because I'm black. Oh, let's bend the rules for the black guy. Let's let him smoke because he's black. Just because all those old blues musicians never got any royalties and had to play one-night gigs until they were like 100 just so they could pay for their whores, and now I get to smoke anywhere I want to. Man, that's bull.
Something weird happened to me.
Yeah? Well, something weird happened to me, too. They made me supervisor.
Well, that's great.
Is it? I've been here 16 days, Marvin. That Filipino over there has been here 5 years. You know why they made me supervisor?
Because you're black?
No, because that is dumb.
I remember when I was a kid watching WWE religiously with my brother and grandfather. I actually got introduced to WWE by way of a game called SmackDown vs. Raw 2007. One of the first things that captivated me was firstly the music. This game legitimately has one of the best soundtracks ever, and I'll fight you if you disagree. But in liking the games, I became a fan of the actual show. This is where I found this weirdo by the name of Jeff Hardy. Now, yes, Jeff Hardy isn't a video game character, but to the eclectic black child who I saw in the mirror, Jeff Hardy was my first instance of a guy who wasn't afraid to be himself. That being weird and artistic was okay. I didn't necessarily need Jeff Hardy to be a black guy. In fact, most people of color or women have or have had idols who didn't look like them per se, and we all just live with it, you know? But imagine if we grew up with more mainstream examples of people who look like us, doing things that we wish we could do. For straight white men, that was the norm. And in the WWE, Jeff Hardy's presence didn't take away from people like his brother Matt Hardy, who was a more traditionally stocked WWE wrestler. The feeling I had, while beautiful in its own right, should be shared amongst everyone with people who indeed reflect them. Why is that so hard for people to grasp? That being said, representation is simple, at least on paper. It's the idea that the world is big enough for everyone in it to be seen. That's it. The world's a lot bigger than certain basement dwellers would have you believe, but for the pasty patriots that feel the need to type out a 2,000-word paper in my comments about how something is clearly DEI or woke, it's the end of their tender-eaten world, because let's be honest, these people don't hate wokeness really, they just conflate comfort, that being seeing themselves and their beliefs parroted with something being of quality. Now for any person of color out there, you and I both know that white defaultism isn't new. How many pieces of media, again, featured that guy we just talked about? You know, mid-20s to 30s, white guy with the buzz cut, 5 o'clock shadow, traumatic backstory, military training, gravelly voiced, and a moral compass somewhere between Batman and the Punisher. That motherfucker was gaming for like 2 decades, right? He was the guy on the box art, the guy we all thought of when we thought of AAA games and the types of protagonists. And again, there is nothing really wrong with that at all. But now, certain people have been socialized in a way that when someone else took the lead, be it a black man or a woman or anyone not named John, Jack, or Joel, it not only felt like an invasion, it felt like a personal attack on everything they held dear in video games. It probably felt like a bunch of people who didn't look like you walked into your house uninvited, but you seem to have forgotten that you actually live in a hotel, and it was never just your house. And for the people about to leave a comment, I want to say this: white defaultism isn't necessarily about your whiteness. It's about the idea that when you look in the mirror, you mistake it for the whole picture, that anyone not like you is automatically an other, that your perspective is neutral, universal, and should remain unchallenged. And when reality smacks them in the face, something in them breaks. I know these are the same kinds of people who value logic above all else and deem emotions as a product of femininity, but why is it that it's almost always men who lose their shit when they're not represented? Being able to be upset about something like this, being able to use words like DEI or woke as insults, come from a place of privilege, and I don't think there's any debating that really. Imagine being able to even be upset at the fact that you're no longer the default guy after literal decades. Imagine always being able to see yourself in some of the best video games and movies and TV shows and comics. Imagine being able to look in the mirror as a kid and see your heroes reflecting back at you. The fact of the matter is, you're fragile. You are the snowflake. Fragility in this sense is just entitlement in a thinly veiled cosplay. These people don't analyze stories. See, no, they simply project onto them. They don't want representation to stop. They want it centered on them. And that right there is the heart of that fragility and the anti-woke hysteria. They're not defending art, as they love to claim, using phrases like, I just like good writing, you know? They're defending their own shitty egos built up on ideas and beliefs that only seek to exclude others. And here's the thing, the gaming landscape is massive now. There's enough room for everyone. Straight, gay, trans, black, Asian, Latino, what the hell ever. No one is kicking you out, but you have to share that sandbox now. So when you see a woman on the box art, or a black man centered prominently in a video game, or a character who uses they them pronouns, that's not the end of gaming. That's gaming finally catching up to a world that we actually live in. And if that scares you, that's not a reflection of the game, that's a reflection of you and your inability to see others as human. If you think diversity ruins art, maybe you never really loved art. You just love seeing yourself reflected in that art. See, I think it's easy. I think it's easy to fall down into the kinds of thinking that some of the white gamers have. It's easy because when the world at large caters to you, puts people who look like you in positions of power and influence, and tells you that you're the standard no matter what, you become emboldened. Your ego grows to a point where you feel like anything outside your worldview is deemed as lesser than. That's why people like Asmongold can say things like this.
They're not able to kill as many people as Israel because they don't have as many bombs and as many weapons. But if they did, they'd be doing the same thing. That's it. Just takes enough. That's right. These people are not your allies. They are not the same as us. They come from an inferior culture that is horrible. It kills people for their identity, and it is directly antithetical to everything Western values stand for, and it is an inferior culture in all ways. It is that simple.
But we'll touch more on people like him in a second. For now, I want to pivot into something I mentioned earlier, and that being this woke gaming list, that of which will be linked below. If you've never heard of this list, buckle up, because you're about to get a glimpse of some of the worst kinds of people imaginable, and their reasonings as to why something is quote-unquote woke. Some of these are genuinely fucking nuts. So look, I'm not gonna lie to you, this list was the reason I even wanted to make this video. Literally, this whole video is built around this section. I'm not even entirely sure how I stumbled across this list, but just the fact that this list even exists is just wild to me. Now, I'm not going to cover everything in this list. If you want to, however, again, it's all linked below. But in this section, I want to pick apart the absurdity of some of their justifications with the games that I'm either deeply familiar with, games that I had a passing interest in, or games that have no business being in this list in the first place. Honestly, I'm at a point where this list doesn't even piss me off anymore. It's just sort of a morbid curiosity driven peek into the mind of people who quite simply can't enjoy things. I won't spend too much time on every game, by the way, just enough time to see how really idiotic and worthless this list really is. But without further ado, let's hit the first game that I want to look at on this list. So, Tekken 8 contains overtly pro-LGBTQ messaging, uses body type in place of biological sex during character creation. I've played this game pretty much since launch, and I can straight up tell you that there's damn near nothing gay about this game. I don't recall any pride flags or characters straight up saying, "Hey, I'm gay," you know, in lieu of their name or introduction. Then the only people that can be considered inside of the LGBTQ plus community would have to be Leo, as there has been some ambiguity as to their gender, but like there's like 40 characters in this game and Leo is one of them. Is that really overtly pro LGBTQ plus? They just exist in this game, and it's just like, who cares? Honestly, I think the only gay thing about this game is Jin and Hwoarang's gay ass rivalry. If you know, you know. Now, this site uses body type in place of biological sex during character creation. Maybe asking yourself, wait, there's character customization in Tekken 8? Where? Outside of the outfits, where does that even happen? Well, that's the thing. There isn't really. What they're talking about is this knockoff me bullshit that you play as when you enter Tekken arcade mode.
Bitch, you better be joking.
Are you really telling me that this is such a big thing to you that you call it woke and recommend people not play it? If the end result in changing your biological sex during character creation is the same as male or female, what the f does it matter? You're mad about 2 words? Are you 5 years old? Tekken 8, for all its legitimate flaws, is still a damn fun game, and it looks and plays beautifully. My verdict? Stop it. Get some help. But the next game we have on this list is Red Dead Redemption 2. It contains subtly pro-DEI messaging. Several minor characters espouse modern-day political sentiments. As an example, the NPC Sadie Adler behaves the same way a modern-day feminist would. So I don't know if I ever said this before, but the Red Dead series is one of my favorite video game series of all time. So imagine my surprise when I see that Red Dead Redemption 2 is staunchly labeled as woke by these people. They say that RDR2 has subtly pro-DEI messaging. First off, if you didn't know already, DEI is the new woke, also meaning anything not white, straight, and male. And here's a quick lesson in definitions. DEI, if you didn't know for some reason, because you're using it in bad faith, it means diversity, equity, and inclusion. A framework aimed at creating workplaces and societies where individuals from all backgrounds feel valued, respected, and have equal opportunities to succeed. DEI does not and will not ever be shorthand for women. Anyway, this list doesn't really go in depth with most justifications, and that's because I don't really have anything to stand on here. The only thing I think that they mean is that Arthur Morgan simply isn't a bigot. See, the reason Arthur isn't a bigot is because of the teachings of a man named Dutch, a man who, despite being evil down the line, is a man who I'd call a free thinker, a man who sees beyond the prejudices of society in his time and sees people mostly for what they are, good or bad, at least before his head injury. That's why he takes in black people, women, gay-ass Bill Williamson, and other people who just aren't the majority in the world at the time. That's why Dutch and crew espouse modern-day political sentiments, simply because they were intelligent and didn't succumb to groupthink. They cite the character Sadie Adler as an example of espousing modern-day feminist rhetoric, and I have to say, feminism in good faith isn't man-hating. It's simply fighting for equality and the autonomy of women in a patriarchal society. The only thing that I can think of that Sadie says or does is that she wants to wear pants, and that she and her deceased husband once shared the housework. If you play this game, you know that Sadie is one of the best characters in the whole game, and her missions are some of the most memorable. Quick shout out to the hot air balloon guy. I like that guy. But I don't know, man. Red Dead 2, like Baldur's Gate, is a masterpiece of gaming. And if you missed out on it because of shit like this, I feel bad for you. My verdict:
stop it. Get some help.
So these next games are going to be a bit of a speed run just to show you the absurdity of this list and the kind of weird ass people who make these kinds of lists. With that being said, the next game on this list is Skyrim. Contains subtly pro LGBTQ+ messaging, contains subtly pro DEI messaging, homosexual marriage options, an NPC in Whiterun asks whether the sight of a strong Nord woman offends you. Now by now, you may have noticed that this list is color-coded. Red being woke, full stop, blue being not woke, and yellow being in a weird middle ground. But it's a bit weird because the reasons listed in Skyrim's entry gets read in other entries. So my conclusion, they love Skyrim, and probably mostly for the porn brain mods they downloaded, but still love it. And in trying to be controversial with this list, you have to try and find something to bitch and moan about. Again, the homosexual marriage options they list is just that, an option, like I keep saying. Why is people getting so upset at options not even for them? Lastly, the whole Nord woman asking if the sight of a strong woman offends them or not is such a non-issue. Like, literally just ignore her. What the f? If a minor NPC rage baits you, then yes, it does offend you. But listen, I bet if these people modded this game to have her f***ing ass out, they'd be into it, you know? My verdict:
stop it. Get some help.
Anyway, next we have 2023's Saints Row. Contains overtly pro-DEI messaging. The intro features a diverse group of female combatants. Many diverse characters are all fighting back against our unfair economic situation. Heavy social commentary. Let's be real though, woke or not, who the f is playing this game? Okay, so we have Among Us. Contains overtly pro-LGBTQ messaging, pride flag nameplates. First off, who the f is looking at Among Us through the lens of bigotry? How are pride flag nameplates enough to be an overt display of pro-LGBTQ+?
Hey pal, you just blowing from stupid town?
But in the same vein, we have Minecraft. Wait, Minecraft? The game damn near about nothing but creation and exploration? I know there's some kind of story there, but what the f could make this game woke? Contains overtly pro-DEI and overtly pro-LGBTQ messaging. Update 1.16.100 added multiple title screen splash text voicing support for the BLM movement. Update 1.19.10 added multiple title screen splash text voicing support for the LGBTQ community. Oh my god. But for Among Us, my verdict:
stop it. Get some help.
But on Minecraft, so nothing in the actual game makes it woke? You know what? If you let some words that change every time you start the game deter you from one of the most popular games ever, who was really the snowflake here? Bro, what happened to y'all? Did a black person like steal your girlfriend or something? What's going on, man? Build your goddamn dirt fort, make a farm, and shut the f up. I don't know, man. Speaking of relationships, this next entry for Until Dawn is f***ing bad shit. My verdict for this:
stop it. Get some help.
Next we move on to Until Dawn. Contains overtly pro-DEI messaging. Prominently features a black male, Asian female couple as 2 of the 8 main characters in the game. According to the Pew Research, Asian black intermarriages make up less than 2% of all intermarriages. You see, a preface: if it's one thing these white dudes love, it's the fetishization of Asian women. For some reason, they have this idea of them being incredibly submissive. I'm not sure where that stereotype came from, but it was porn. Wait. What? The reason people think Asian women are submissive is because of porn. Oh. Ew. So yeah, the fact that this is even a reason is f***ing weird. Just because that may be a real statistic doesn't mean it doesn't happen in real f***ing life. I think this is just a thinly veiled fear of black men taking their dream women. But anyway, why are we bringing up stats in a game that features f***ing Wendigos in it? My verdict:
stop it. Get some help.
But speaking of the sexualization of women, we have Resident Evil 3 Remake. Contains overtly pro-DEI messaging. This remake has made substantial changes to Joe's character and the events of the original story. Her outfit was also changed for practicality reasons, and you have to pay for a DLC to restore the original. But okay, This being on the list says a couple things to me. You guys need to be able to go into every woman you see, otherwise it's woke. We touched on that already. They put practicality in quotes in a mocking way when describing the change of her outfit, but you put in research articles as a way to advocate for realism. So do you want realism as a whole or only in certain cases? So it's like when it comes to interracial relationships, you need realism. With women, you want them in outfits that straight up aren't practical for running around the city fighting zombies. Also, going back to 2023 Saints Row, oh man. You get mad that the main characters are fighting against their economic position, but you get mad that in order to be gooners again, you have to pay for it. Bitch, why are your morals so flimsy? Is this list written by one person? Because whoever you are, you really lack integrity. If it's written by multiple people, you guys need to have a Discord meeting or something. And yes, I know you use Discord, and review some of the entries so you can have a bit more continuity. My verdict:
stop it. Get some help.
But just when you think we reached the bottom of this list stupidity, we somehow find a basement. Because yo, imagine my surprise when I'm scrolling down this list and I see World and Yearning, a gay story. So like, to that I have to say two things. What the fuck did you expect? And two, I know this list can't be serious. In fact, this has to be one big joke, right? Please tell me this isn't fucking real, and at worst, I just wasted our time here. Please tell me people don't devote this much time to bigotry. But real quick though, World as a title is crazy work. I'm gonna have to go buy it to further investigate. Let me just... But no, my verdict: stop it.
Get some help.
But as we wrap up this section, I want to touch on a game that's close to my heart, and that's Spider-Man Miles Morales. Contains overtly pro-LGBTQ messaging, contains overtly pro-DEI messaging, prominently displayed pride and BLM flags. The new POC main character overshadows Peter Parker. So look, this game is pro-LGBTQ+ and pro-black. You know why? Because it reflects the real people and communities of New York. You wanted realism? Well, have you ever been to New York City? New York City is black. New York City is gay. New York City is trans. New York City is a wet dream tomato. My point being, you can't claim to want realism and be upset that this game reflects it. In fact, this is very toned down from how it would be in real life. Anyway, the final little take that they have is that Miles Morales overshadows Peter Parker in this game. Oh yeah, I wonder why. I fucking wonder why. Look, I'll say it. I think the rights, the incels, the neckbeards, the anti-woke mentality is a result of low intelligence. See, with things like inclusion and empathy, the world only gets better. And I believe those two things are true markers of intelligence and surviving as a society. My verdict?
Stop it. Get some help.
Anyway, I want to touch on Starfield. So with that being said, this whole list, my final verdict:
you niggas are crazy!
So with all that being said, now we have the origins of wokeness, the presence of so-called wokeness in video games all throughout its history. We have the reasons why wokeness bothers some people, and now we have a clear receipt on how insane these people's dogma really is. Now we need to touch on the types of people who keep this fear alive and why that is. I think there are obviously so many reasons as to why someone would keep this fear alive, but the biggest platform on which this kind of bigotry exists is obviously the internet, namely places like here on YouTube. And if we just stick to YouTube, there are two types of flame fanners, that being the grifters and the bigots. The thing is, neither of them actually care about video games, movies, or culture. They care about control over narratives and comfort and over who gets to belong in these spaces. So let's break it down. So with that being said, we'll do something no woman is really willing to do and touch on the grifters.
As much as I would want them to run over the protesters, I think that would cause issues. And also, if you run over the protesters, I don't really care if they do it or not, but I don't think it's necessary. Only because I would want to utilize their bodies for compelled slave labor.
So clearly, there's many grifters, but one of the most famous ones that I constantly come across is a streamer who uploads to YouTube, that being Asmongold. Now, Asmongold is an interesting creator to me, if you can even call him that. All he really does is react to political content and stream all day. And like, listen, get a bag, right? But like, this is just peak laziness in my opinion, and he agrees.
I love watching videos on stream, by the way. Some people think that's lazy content. It is. I still like doing it. It's easy, it's funny, I like watching the videos, it's just cool.
He never really says anything of substance either. I can't really stand to give him views, so we'll go through some videos through other creators. And, wait, I refuse to keep calling this man Asmongold. Let me just... Okay, his name is Zach. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Anyway, Zach never says anything of substance, and it blows my mind that people really do follow him. And before we dive a bit deeper, I need to preface this. This message goes a lot deeper than just video games. It's more of a worldview thing with Zach, which is actually more dangerous than what bigots do. See, he seduces these young men into thinking like him through very subtle means, which leads these men into bigotry, but we'll get there later with a more apt comparison. For now, we need to touch on stuff like this.
Well, this is something I've said before that really triggers people. I think that it's weird to play female characters if you're a guy. I do. I think that it's weird. I don't play Tomb Raider. As soon as I found out Metroid was a girl, I was done. I was so worried about that shit happening with Master Chief too. Like whenever I had to play female characters in Heroes of the Storm, whenever I was playing that, it was very, very upsetting, and I had to quit the game.
First off, what did I say about the Samus thing? I wrote this section of the video before I even actively knew he said this. Second, her name isn't Metroid, you f***ing peanut. Did you even play this game, or are you just, I don't know, grifting? How do you become a person who just feels so weird playing as a woman in video games that you miss out on some of the best games ever? I don't understand that. I don't really think he can call himself a gamer at this point, like I said. Also, why exactly do these people get so shook when you play as a woman? Are you not attracted to women? You must be if you want them sexualized every 2 seconds. Isn't controlling a woman one of your ultimate f***ing fantasies? So bam, sexism is part of his brand. We played this clip already, but we need to touch on his opinions on other races.
They come from an inferior culture that is horrible. It kills people for their identity, and it is directly antithetical to everything Western values stand for, and it is an inferior culture in all ways.
So like, first, American culture kills people too, maybe in less obvious ways, but it does indeed. You know, lack of healthcare, housing, food, mental health services, etc, etc. Are we really any better? He claims that Palestine is directly antithetical to everything Western values stand for, and like, okay, does every nation need to be held to the standards of the West? I mean, ideally, right? But in practice, Western society is full of racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, classist practices. Why is this your measuring stick here? I can plainly see why you have subscribers. They're just as horrible as you. So bam, racism is also part of his brand. So okay, Zach is a lazy creator. He has racist views, he has sexist views. So what exactly makes him successful here? Well, he's literally the stereotypical gamer. The sweaty, stinky gamer who lives in disgusting conditions with views that would isolate him from normal society. People like Zach have learned to say things without truly saying things. He's a panderer, essentially. He's essentially the fast food of YouTube. Reaction content is essentially the opposite of actual work and effort, in my opinion. But that's not my beef right now. In this tremendous amount of content that he's able to put out due to lack of effort, he slides in views that are in line with people who make lists like the one we went through before. See, Zach, in my opinion, is a master of dog whistles. He's like one of those people you can find working at GameStop. He won't outright tell you, I'm racist or sexist. He'll say things like this.
I mean, again, none of the Chinese people that were oppressed under, you know, the law of 1882 exist anymore. They're all dead. It's the same as every single black person that was a victim of slavery is dead too, at least in America. There's still slavery in other places of the world. But yeah, they're all dead. This is a dead issue.
No, it's not, because when money is owed, money is owed. If you were owed money by the US government or even a private person or a corporation and you happen to die, that those people don't just get let off the hook in your eyes. I'm sure if you had children, you would expect your children to receive the money that you are owed. Why should the victim be punished for the fact that the perpetrator of the crime is dragging their feet?
What about the Japanese who US put in the camps? Yeah, exactly. And that was in the 40s too. Well, to be fair, they did get reparations for that. And I think it's fair that they got reparations for that.
It's fair that they got reparations. Just so you know, the Japanese were put in internment camps for 3 to 4 years during World War II. 3 to 4 years, and they weren't forced to work.
Or this.
Roads are for cars, not for people. If people are trying to actively obstruct you from driving on a public road, and they're doing it because they think they can like get together and like bully you into not driving, I think you should totally be justified to run them over.
Or this.
These ladies do not need exposition dumps or 80 cutscenes. They just show up and drip elegance, drop one line of vague sorrow, and then next thing you know, you're obsessing over cosplays and fan art for like the next month.
Well, it's because the characters are attractive too. That's another really big important thing that a lot of characters, a lot of people don't understand. is that Western artists and Western developers, especially American developers, nobody wants to cosplay an ugly bitch.
Or this.
So if you're making a shooter game that's primarily made for men, then you should make sure that all of the female characters in the game are fuckable.
If gamers actually care about attractive women, why do they mistreat all the real life ones? The love you have for the inanimate ink on your body pillows, t-shirts, card sleeves, wallpapers, and trading card playmats never gets applied to actual women, because they don't come with the same level of control and customization. Liking women characters by itself isn't a controversial opinion, but in this situation, what they're actually saying is that they can't function unless every outlet of their life supports their goonin'. You're not asking for better games or better characters, you just want pandering. And every time anybody else in the gaming community asks for representation, we're told that's a bad thing. If you want to see attractive women, go outside and talk to somebody. And if you want to make your inability to do that the responsibility of a game company, get off the PC and get into some therapy.
See, he dresses it up. It's like he speaks with such confidence and self-esteem that he, to untrained ears, sounds as though he knows what he's talking about. He sounds like your coworker who tries to gauge how intolerant he can be around you so he knows how much he can say. They do this so they can find an audience for their hatred, so they can build that feedback loop around them. And if you push back, you'll more than likely never hear from them again in the same depth. Zach has found his group, however, and is getting paid for it, obviously. This is why he won't stop. Whether or not he believes in these views is irrelevant. His fans do, and every creator financially is nothing without their fans. I can't stand to look at his face any longer, so I'll wrap this section up soon. I want to show you this clip from another creator and his subsequent replies.
If I had my way, I would disenfranchise 85% of the population instantly. I would take away their right to vote, and they would be saying after 10 years, 20 years, thank you. Thank you so much for removing this burden from us. We no longer have to worry about this. We don't have to deal with this anymore. That's what I would do. There are too many dumb people out there. And back in the day, we used to have presidents like Thomas Jefferson. And now we have presidents like George W. Bush. Nope. 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 Not anymore. Think about how close Kamala Harris came to winning the presidency, and then tell me that democracy is a good idea. Oh, we gotta do something about this quick. Things are gonna get real bad. And yeah, they're dumbass, but disagree. I tell you that is, and the thing is that.
And the thing is, you're one of them. Actually think about what you're saying. Do you understand the risk of giving a certain class of people the right to determine who can or can't vote? Furthermore, it begs the question. He sits there and says, I would take 85% of the population's right to vote away, and in 10 years, they'd be like, thank you so much. Asmongold, how are you defining who should be a part of that 85%? You do understand the most uneducated states in the country are all red states, right? Weren't you retarded people the ones who Googled what a tariff was after you elected Trump into office? Google was inundated with searches saying, what is a tariff? You stupid ass niggas were told in the debate that tariffs are not good for the economy. By whom? Kamala Harris. Asmongold, another piece of evidence to show that you would be a part of the 85%. Asmongold, of the two people on stage, which one had a degree in economics? Ding, 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 it's not Trump, it's Kamala Harris.
So not only is he racist and sexist, he also just straight up promoting the downfall of democracy. Now, yeah, America is barely a democracy in practice, but he's just straight up saying that he wants to take away people's rights. And of course he doesn't elaborate on whose rights should be taken away, but I think we can all guess who. The gays, the trans people, the minorities, and everyone else not straight, white, male, or Christian. This type of creator is dangerous, but subtly so. He's the kind of guy who blends into society and can positively associate with people he doesn't really like fundamentally, and his work reflects that. But what happens when you constantly consume work like this? The views get more extreme. When you've been softened up by enough of Zach's fake intellect and lazy bigotry, you're primed for the real poison. And that's when you meet creators like Ranting for Vengeance. Now, if you're on the good side of the internet, you probably only know Ranting for Vengeance to other YouTubers reacting to his insane takes. In fact, I'm willing to bet that most people know him because of his reaction to the upcoming Wolverine game. If you haven't had the misfortune of seeing his content either way, I'm sorry for what I'm about to show you.
Why does Logan look and sound nothing like his character? But more importantly, this is Insomniac we're dealing with. The people who gave us Spider-Man Miles Morales and Spider-Man 2. I got Spider-Man 2 because I was a really big fan of Spider-Man at the time and wanted a good Spider-Man game that stayed faithful to the character. And I thought I was going to get that, but what did I get instead? A big load of gay black people. What? Hey, do you want to play as Miles Morales, the fake Spider-Man, going around at festivals with other people of color? And do you also want to play as his deaf girlfriend for some reason? And all of the female characters are feminist bitches like Mary Jane Watson in Spider-Man 2.
You see, this is part of the reason this video took so long to make. Sifting through outright bigotry is genuinely so exhausting. See, unlike Asmongold, who can be given plausible deniability sometimes, Ranting for Vengeance is the kind of person who probably shows his cards to the whole world. The issue with people like him is that he'll see wokeness and DEI when there isn't any. I mean, look at some of his video titles. Superman is woke and the worst movie ever made. Ironheart is BLM woke garbage. Why Spider-Man 4 will be woke propaganda. Fantastic Four is woke and feminist trash. And you know, I realized something. He has a lot of videos talking about Fantastic Four, and here I am worried that people will think I'm milking my Spider-Man content. Jesus Christ. Anyway, one thing I really want to mention about RFE is just how young he is. Now, apparently bro is like at most 16 years old right now. And you know what? I fell down some pretty cringe rabbit holes at 16 too. I was an avid watcher of people like The Amazing Atheists. Yeah, make of that what you will. So I can understand how a young mind would take such a strong stance on something. But where he and I diverge is I don't believe that people with different views and experiences should just not exist. I didn't rage when I saw Christians the same way he rages at the existence of gay black people. But you might be saying he's much too young to form these views on his own though, right? And you'd be right. The fact is, his father actually has a very similar YouTube channel. Now I won't spend much time on his father, but his channel is RPMMA. And a quick look at his channel makes it easy to see how and why his son is the way he is. This whole thing further proves the point that I made earlier. This type of hate, this type of intolerance isn't normal. It's taught. Nobody like this wakes up one day and decides to be a racist, homophobic, transphobic misogynist. It's formed by the people you watch. And in the internet's case, if it wasn't your family, it's people like Zach. See, you could very much fall down this pipeline in less than a week if you didn't know any better. And that's the scary part. This kind of hatred should not exist in someone so young. If anything, I just feel bad for him.
That's when we get the glimpse of the best part of the entire story. Barbara Gordon. She peeks her head in just one panel, I'm pretty sure. And she's black. She is black. They did it again. Another redhead character, just changed to black. Iris West, Wally West. Are we serious? We're just making them black for no reason and expecting people not to notice or expecting people to tolerate it. But I won't, and I hope everybody else won't either. Black Barbara Gordon just snuck her way in. Why? Think about it from a writing standpoint. She didn't even need to show up in the story. If she did, she should have looked the way she always has. I'm getting sick of this. Can we just start changing black characters to white? Can Black Panther be white in the next comic, please? It doesn't work that way because black people need to be represented. Wait, they've always been represented and you're just shoving them into stories for no reason now. You're swapping people out to make them black because you want to make up for all those years of not being represented. It's a lie and it's a scam. Here and you see someone looking like this should have no rights calling Zendaya an ugly black chick who looks like a boy. Sorry to break it to you, but I can call anybody whatever I want to. And I'm gonna call you an idiot retard and I'm gonna call Zendaya an ugly black bitch. Sorry to break the news to all of you, but this channel isn't supposed to be a feast for your eyes. I'm not some model here to look good for you. I'm here to deliver a message. It's not a nice one and you're not gonna like it. So you can post my face and my thumbnails all across the internet, Twitter or YouTube. It doesn't really change anything. I'm going to continue to keep pissing you off. It isn't rage bait. It's not that I don't believe anything that I say. I believe everything I say 100%. I don't care if this is a brand new alternate universe where Magneto has to be black now. It's stupid. You're telling me there isn't a guy in Hollywood right now or some obscure dude that nobody's heard of that could come in and play Eric Lensher? No, you have to bring in Denzel Washington, who's 70 years old. What? Why? He would succeed Michael Fassbender and the evergreen Ian McKellen in the role. Interestingly, Sir Ian McKellen was around 60 years old when he first stepped out. Oh, hold up. Time out. Are we really talking about Michael Fassbender and then Ian McKellen and they're both playing the same character and then Denzel will come along?
Denzel is black.
And I don't want to spend too much time on ranting for vengeance right now. Again, I put out this video for a while because this content makes me feel a myriad of things. You know, anger and sadness and disgust and some compassion, but mostly just exhausted. As a person of color who has had to navigate a world where I have to be wary of people both overtly and covertly hating my existence, it's exhausting. So when I see people comment things on my videos like Miles Morales is DEI or Spider-Man games have only had Peter in them, I admit it does make me a bit sad, you know? I'm constantly reminded of how I and other people in marginalized groups simply are wanted in these spaces. But then I have to remind myself that these characters are for me, that these spaces are for me. It's people like Asmongold and Ranting who make me feel excluded, and I will not be made to feel less than by people who look like they smell like aged cheese. To end this section of the video, I want to put it to you like this. Zach and Ranting are like Bolton Ramsay and Joffrey Lannister Baratheon, respectively. Joffrey, like Ranting, is outwardly quote-unquote evil, a young and dumb force who came to be based on the whims and influence of his immediate higher-up, a loud asshole who makes you feel his hate just by looking at him. He's the one who announces he's the king, and what he says goes. He believes he speaks the truth.
Any man who must say, I am the king, is no true king.
He can't and or won't hide his intolerance of anyone not on his good side. Too young and dumb to really understand what's truly at stake when speaking to the masses the way he does. Zach, on the other hand, is more like Bolton Ramsay, simply because he can hide his quote-unquote evil. He's got the ability to play face while actually being a heel. Thus, he gets further in the YouTube algorithm. He's able to influence the masses and convince his followers that he's an authority on what's right and wrong in gaming. See, I always felt like Ramsay was the scariest villain in Game of Thrones because he's smart enough to know he's spreading evil, but can reel it in when he's around certain people. He can switch it off and on. To many, Bolton was probably just another bastard who happened to be tied to royalty, but to people like Theon, he was evil incarnate. But the thing is, when you as a viewer watch someone like Zach, you too become like Theon. You forget your voice and become castrated in your own right. You didn't hold these opinions that shaped your worldview until someone like Zach entered your life. But like Theon, it's never too late to redeem yourself. Also, real quick, Ranting for Vengeance's name is a reference to Screaming for Vengeance, which is an album by Judas Priest. The irony is that the lead singer of Judas Priest, Rob Halford, is a gay man, and I can't make that up at all. And you know what, that's the tragedy here. This was never really about video games. It's about how Grifters and Bigots took a word that meant stay aware of injustice and twisted it into be afraid of equality. They didn't just empty woke of meaning, they filled it with permission to hate you, to exclude you, and to gatekeep joy from you. Games didn't get political, they always were political. The only thing that changed is who's finally visible in these video games. So if diversity ruins games for you, it's not the games, it's you. Anyway, like I said, it's never too late to redeem yourself. But how exactly do I do that? I hear you asking. Well, remember when I said woke used to mean staying aware? This chapter is about getting your humanity back. And as much as I'm tempted to say, go touch grass, I restrain myself and tell you to go interact with the world. Go into spaces outside of your bubble. See how the world is much bigger than your own worldview. See how people with massive differences live, speak, love, and still find joy in the same games that you do. See how important representation is to those people as well. I guarantee you'll realize how much you've been missing out on the world, and probably start to regret some of the biases and opinions you held dear. But again, the thing is, these biases and opinions are not your own. They're the result of bad faith creators who only seek to profit from your ill-gotten prejudices. But it's never too late. Unlearn what they taught you. Play something that scares you. Watch something that challenges your views. Talk to someone who doesn't look like you, and listen when they speak. The world gets bigger when you stop shrinking it to make yourself feel comfortable. Because the truth is, video games were never meant to divide us. They were built to connect us across screens and borders and languages and lives. They've always been about understanding one another through playing them. And if you can find empathy made in a story made of pixels, you can find it anywhere. The world's been waiting for you to log off and live. Listen, you need to see the people that you were told to hate, to play the games you were told to avoid, to dive deeper into the things they said would make you weak. See, empathy isn't weakness, it's just proof you were paying attention. With that being said, I'm NeverNotJune. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, I'm always saying that I'm up too late. Don't speak in the room when I'm on my own. Tell me, all my choices untouched by fate. Will I reach a limb that can cover? I wanna keep running. No, I don't wanna keep running. It's always so thin with me. I expectations, good workers don't ever fall. Cash won't pay road, they grow, they sing discount prices for my soul. I just put my life on hold, so that I just need lower goals. Strap my boots and sacrifice, or die with a good credit score. 4 walls, trap me in, hope a song can get me out. Blue collar, shackle gray, hope a post could cut me out. No such thing as humble kings, every peasant got a song. Listen to a nigga sing, but my crown I carry on. All that I have, I got on my own. Is that shit sustainable? 5, 6 years ain't had no home. Is that shit obtainable? All I wanna do is put my city on the map. So I plead to the powers be. I hope they go with that, right? And I just wanna forge your name in this world. Ain't about the status or the fame or the girls. Ain't about the money. I'm just living life on my terms. Here for 80 years, I'm just making a lot of light turns. I'm always saying that I'm up too late. Don't speak in the room when I'm on my own. Tell me all my choices untouched.